I will call the October 14th, 2024 Troy City Council meeting to order and ask for the roll call for Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Baker?
Here.
Councilmember Brooks?
Here.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Craig? Councilmember Chanda?
Here.
Councilmember Gunn?
Here.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick?
Here.
Thank you. we do have quorum present, and I did receive notification from Councilmember Chamberlain-Craig that she would be out of the county this evening and therefore unable to attend our meeting. So I'll move resolved that Troy City Council hereby excuses the absence of Councilwoman Rebecca Chamberlain-Craig at the regular City Council meeting of October 14th, 2024 due to being out of the county.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Chanda, that we approve the resolution to excuse Councilmember Chamberlain-Craig as read into the record. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chanda?
Yes.
Councilmember Gunn?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick?
Yes.
Motion carries. This evening, we do not have any certificates of recognition and special presentations, no carryover items, no public hearings. So we'll move on to public comment for items on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. We do have one person signed up this evening for an item on the agenda. That is John Gunnels. And the rules are printed, and I know he's been here before, but 3 minutes, and when the light turns yellow, you have 1 minute left, and when it turns red, that is all, and I'll ask you to come forward.
Thank you. Not sure if this is officially on the agenda, not on the agenda. My comments are related to some developments in Troy, including Eckford Estates, so thank you for letting me speak today. I've emailed many of you over the last few weeks, so thank you to those of you who've already responded. I really appreciate it. I'm a resident near Leonard Elementary School, so for those of you who are familiar, we have a lot of development going on. First, there's the Eckford Estates with about 22 new homes going in. Directly across from that, we have another development with 26 more homes. There's a condo complex a few blocks away from that that's already up. And then recently, the school district completed the land swap with a developer. So now there's another portion of land that is likely going to be developed. I believe the sewers are already being put in as of this week. So there's a lot going on. I know some of my neighbors stopped by to complain last year about the developments. The city council originally rejected the Eckford Estates development, then it went to the planning commission to be voted on. They eventually voted on what many people seem to feel is a worse plan. We lost a lot of trees, much larger houses. This doesn't really impact me as it's not my backyard, but I feel for my neighbors who lost a lot of that green space. And so as I'm watching all this happening, I'm wondering why the city of Troy doesn't have a land bank, for instance, to purchase some of these properties and help maintain the green space, which many of you have campaigned on as part of maintaining Troy. And I think the city council and other groups have done a great job of maintaining the Troy trails and the park system. It's wonderful, but we also have all these other areas that are being turned into developments. I get it, right? If you own property, you have the right to develop, and I know people need homes, so that's great, but I think there's a better balance that we can have here. And so beyond the land bank, I think when we think about it logically, probably most people in this room want to keep the green space, whether you're sitting up here or back here, whether if you're in my neighborhood or down the street. And even if you own property, a land bank might be a great thing, because if you have your property, your only other solution is to sell it to a developer who might then develop the land, right? So I think that that's a viable solution. I know there's probably a lot that goes on with that, financial concerns and whatnot, but as a citizen, I know myself and many of my neighbors would be happy to help, partner with the city and figure out how we could raise funds, how we could, create more interest for a land bank to purchase properties like that, or properties that have sat vacant. I know I have like 10 seconds, so I'll give one more example. The Kim's restaurant that's now going to be a car wash. I saw the planning commission mentioned, we're going to let this go by because it's been vacant. So I think there's other things we can do with that space. So thank you for the time.
Thank you. That concludes those that have signed up for public comment for items on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. Now's an opportunity for council or administration to respond. Councilmember Hamilton.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for speaking out. This is something that many of council here have discussed. I like you bringing up the idea of the land bank. our city has deep capital needs, and so the reason that hasn't happened is funding. I mean, we have to prioritize public safety, we have an agenda almost $2 million for a new fire truck, so those kind of capital expenses are things we have to prioritize. I know other communities like Rochester Hills have dedicated taxes to purchase land. We don't have that in Troy. We have one of the lowest tax rates in Oakland County, so we have to balance concerns. But I hear you, and it's something I would in the future like to consider, but right now it's a difficult thing to balance our priorities. But thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you, Councilmember Hamilton. Anyone else? Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick?
Thank you for your comments, and I'm very familiar with the area over there and paying attention. You know, the one development you're speaking of, I believe when it came to us, there was an option for it to be a cluster development. Somewhere along the line, that option for our planning was to help try to preserve green space within development projects and trees. And here and there, we have had outcries against approving those, and there was actually resident input that they preferred the other option versus the cluster development. So when I saw emails about trees coming down, my heart did hurt, because that was a decision before us that was painstakingly made, trying to represent what the residents want, and balancing with that private developer. So, you know, this goes on not without me watching and wondering, should we have made a different decision, and would the neighbors have appreciated this after all? So we're doing our best. It's to leverage as many of our planning tools as we can with our developments, and to work that through. And your comments and the discussion we're having are just a reminder to all of us that are in these voting positions to be mindful of that and to do our best. In terms of a land bank, you know, I love the idea, as Councilman Hamilton articulated. We are balancing challenges. We have an operating millage cap in the city. Any operating millage increase has to go to a vote of the public. We have constraints on what we're doing, as we're mindful of being as fiscally responsible as we can be, with capital needs also facing us. So that said, that's not to say that thought can't continue to spin in our minds, and we can continue to have a conversation about it, certainly. I'm not shutting down the idea. I'm just being cautious to not promise that it's something we can pursue, because that's not fair to do. At any rate, those are my thoughts. I didn't want you to come in with an important conversation like that. I can feel what's happening there and the change in the environment around there. Can understand it, appreciate it, and I appreciate you bringing concerns to us.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick. Councilmember Chanda, then we'll work through.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for coming. I mean, this is a sentiment that we hear everywhere, right? It is, and myself included. I'm also a resident and would like to see preserving as much green space as possible. But as Councilmember Hamilton and Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick mentioned, I mean, the funds are limited. In the long run, we would love to create some kind of a land bank fund, so to speak. But right now, our capital needs are, there's a lot of capital needs for buildings and fire. One of the things I can think of is, maybe plant more trees in the areas that is available, like right-of-way areas that we could do in a small budget. One area the Oakland County Commission Parks and Recreation is trying to preserve is the Turtle Woods. That's about 75 acres of land, so that is something we, hopefully by the end of the year or next year, we can guarantee that will be remaining. There are places where maybe we spend a few $1 million, we can buy the land and keep it, but we really don't have those $1 million. So I appreciate your coming here, and we are all in it. I mean, we're very, very supportive, and we'll keep trying, but thanks for bringing it up again.
Councilmember Gunn?
Yeah, again, basically, thank you again for coming. Couple points. You know, we get a lot of emails from citizens who bring up these developments after the fact. So I would encourage more participation at the zoning and planning meetings, you know, to try and make your voice heard. I know it's after the fact now, but just in the last month and a half, we turned down a approval from Planning Commission for Square Lake and Livernois, and we had quite a few citizens speak out against that. He may come back with another proposal, but it didn't meet the needs of the city. There was another applicant who wanted some land that was kind of a right-of-way, and that was also not approved. So we are listening, and we are watching these developments and trying to make sure that they fit the city's needs as well as the developers. And it is, you know, I have been concerned, I guess, to make sure that developers are accountable for what they've agreed to. You know, there's some past approvals, but, you know, going forward, our eyes are watching to make sure that everything has been agreed upon is followed. So.
Thank you, Councilmember Gunn. Councilmember Brooks?
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming tonight and expressing your concerns. As everyone has articulated, you know, this remains like probably one of the most consistent points of contention that we hear from residents, you know, kind of the balancing development and preserving our green spaces. I do want to point out that, you know, the city does own some plots of land. We do have undeveloped parks. So that is, you know, an opportunity to kind of help to develop some of our green spaces a little bit more. But as far as acquiring new green spaces, you know, as we've stated, you know, we do have a lot of competing interests. But that's something I think that we will continue to evaluate.
Thank you, Councilmember Brooks. Not going to be a broken record, but I kind of will. So basically, you're going to hear 6 of us here tonight say we totally agree with you, and we're not going to do anything about it. So and I don't mean that as harsh as that sounds, but that's probably how it feels. Certainly, I think different times we've been on this council at this point, different projects that come before us, and we've seen public input push towards one direction, and then see residents unhappy with the result that they actually advocated for. I think some of that Eckford situation is exactly what that is. And also, you know, 8 years ago or so, 2015, 2016, we did the cluster ordinance, we did the tree preservation ordinance. Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick and Councilmember Ed Abram at the time were very involved in pushing for a Green Space Advisory Committee, and then Councilmember Hamilton got elected talking about the Green Space Advisory Committee. And, you know, so it's been 8 years that it's happened. That committee did some great work, and I actually just came across their report on our website the other day when I was going through some things. And it does talk about some of the undeveloped parkland we do have and the priority that the city has made to do such preservation. And I ironically was talking with the city attorney and the city manager earlier this morning. It's been about 25 years since there were bonds floated in this city, and with that money, undeveloped parkland was purchased. That was, I think, the last time a major purchase of green space was done by the city. And I thought about that. Those bonds are long paid off now, a few years. And we've got those undeveloped parks, which some of you probably live near and are praying every day that somebody doesn't come through and develop and don't know whether it's city land or private property. But as I thought about that, someone might say, well, oh, good, just do that again now with some of these other parcels. But 25 years ago, our library wasn't very old, our community center was new, our aquatic center was new, we were building a new police station at the same time. So our capital needs were very different, I think, in the community than what we face now. So I love the idea of thinking about how we can do something. It's not something that I think can be done immediately. And the difficulty, my fear, to be quite frank from the table, which is always scary, is that the minute we said we're going to do something like this, all of a sudden that land would get really expensive and we'd be forced to spend a lot of tax dollars to do something like that. And it would benefit smaller pockets of the community. So it's a difficult calculation for us to try to figure out. I'm up for the challenge of continuing to think about it, along with the library needs, the infrastructure needs, the public safety focus that we always have. But it is something that, I mean, at least a couple times a week, I either get a call or an email or a text complaining about some trees that were cut down somewhere or what's going on with X property. So it is something that kind of is like an undercurrent of every decision, I think, that comes through this body, especially as it relates to development. So I don't know. That was a long answer to say I don't know exactly what I think we should do moving forward, but I'll continue to think about it, and it sounds like all of us will. But thank you. And it wasn't on the agenda, and you got away with it in the early section, but we'll let that pass tonight. All right. Okay. There's no postponed items this evening, so we move on to regular business. I-1 is board and committee appointments. I don't have any mayoral appointments this evening. I'll turn over to Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick for city council appointments.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move resolved that Troy City Council hereby confirms the appointment of the following people to serve on boards and committees. To the Animal Control Appeals Board for the term expiring 9/30/2027, Neharanessa Abdullah. To the Parks and Recreation Board for the student rep position that expires 7/31/2025, Sanika Atmakur. And for the term expiring 9/30/2027, the reappointment of John Chuck Shepherd.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick, supported by Councilmember Brooks, that we approve the nomination of Neharanessa Abdullah to the Animal Control Appeal Board for the term expiring September 30th, 2027, and to the Parks and Recreation Board as a student representative expiring July 31st, 2025, Sanika Atmakur, and for the term expiring September 30th, 2027, John Chuck Shepherd. Any discussion? We'll just state that Sanika is here this evening, came to say hello, and it was nice to meet you in person. I'm glad you're here and looking forward to, assuming the votes pass tonight, looking forward to having you as a student representative on the Parks and Recreation Board. Thank you very much. And all you other students out there who would love to be part of the city, we do have opportunities to serve on our boards and committees as a student rep. So if you're interested in that, talk to the city clerk maybe. Sorry, Aileen. But she can help you there. The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Brooks.
Yes.
Councilmember Chanda.
Yes.
Councilmember Gunn.
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick.
Yes.
Mayor Baker.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you for the continued service and for your new service. It's very exciting. That concludes city council nominations, or appointments this evening. Move on I-2, board and committee nominations. I do have one mayoral nomination this evening. To the Downtown Development Authority, I nominate Linda Orleans as an in-district member for the term expiring September 30th, 2028.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick, that we approve the nomination of Linda Orleans as an in-district member to the Downtown Development Authority for the term expiring September 30, 2028. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Chanda.
Yes.
Councilmember Gunn.
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick.
Yes.
Mayor Baker.
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks.
Yes.
Motion carries. That concludes mayoral nominations this evening for boards and committees. My understanding is there's no city council nominations, so that concludes board and committee nominations this evening. There's no request for closed session in I-3, so we move on to I-4, budget amendment to community center personnel account. That'll be introduced by Brian Gould, our recreation director, and Jeanette Menig, our human resources director.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The item before you is for a budget amendment to the community center operating account in the amount of $53,000 for the 2025 fiscal year for the purpose of hiring additional full-time staff to ensure the safety of patrons and staff at the community center pool. We're happy to answer any questions you have.
Thanks, Brian. Councilmember Gunn?
The 53,000, that covers, is it just 90 days?
No, that would be annual. It would be an addition, that would be the addition to what these positions will be covering part-time staff hours that are already budgeted. So that's the additional amount for this year that we would need to.
But the way I
cover.
read it was to hire 2 people, right?
Yes, correct.
So you're hiring 2 people, a lifeguard, but we don't need them year-round?
No, we do use, this person will use year-round. Budgeted in our account are 2 people to work morning shifts.
Gotcha. Okay.
As lifeguards. So it's already in the budget. It just, the benefits and things make it more.
Just better paying.
Yep,
Okay.
correct.
Thank you. Additional questions? Someone like to move the resolution? Councilmember Brooks.
I'll move I for budget amendment to community center personnel account as printed in the agenda.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Brooks, supported by Councilmember Gunn, that we approve I-4 budget amendment to community center personnel account as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Gunn.
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick.
Yes.
Mayor Baker.
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks.
Yes.
Councilmember Chanda.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is I-5 budget amendment and standard purchasing resolution 4, HGAC Cooperative Purchasing Program, ladder truck for the fire department. That'll be introduced by Fire Chief Pete Hollinger.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor, Council. Tonight I bring before you a budget amendment and a resolution to purchase a new 100-foot ladder truck for Station 3. Just a little background, we run a fleet of 18 fire trucks, frontline fire trucks, that are a mix of engines and ladder trucks with a few specialty trucks in there. And fire trucks last anywhere from about 20 to 30 years service life on them. So with 18 trucks, we're on average putting a fire truck annually in the budget to spread out the purchases over the life of the trucks. Ladder 3 is currently our oldest truck, a 1998, so right now sitting around 26 years old. We put it in the budget last year. Unfortunately, it didn't make it through the process. As we were just discussing, capital is a little thin here, a little difficult. But at the same time, Senator Weber's office reached out to us and asked the city if we had any needs at that time. Thankfully, Manager Miller reached out to the department heads, and I said, can we put ladder 3 in there and see if they can help us out? And thankfully, Senator Weber came through. So the state's going to give us $1.9 million to purchase this truck. So tonight I'm looking for authorization on this. And with the budget amendment, we do have to pay for the truck up front. However, the state will reimburse us the full entire amount. There is no cost sharing with this grant from the state. So we're, in essence, covering the full cost on this purchase.
That's awesome. Any questions? I'll move I-5 budget amendment and standard purchasing resolution 4, HGAC Cooperative Purchasing Program, ladder truck for the fire department as printed in the agenda packet.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Gunn, that we approve I-5 budget amendment and standard purchasing resolution 4, HGAC Cooperative Purchasing Program, ladder truck for the fire department. Discussion. Councilmember Hamilton.
Sorry, I do have a question. I
You can
missed
ask the
it,
question,
but I think I know the answer to this, but when do we expect this truck to be delivered? Because I know the trucks have a very long lead time.
Yeah,
these
excellent
days.
point. I did mean to point that out as well. So ladder trucks right now are running about 36-month production time. So this will get us placed in line, but we won't see this until the current ladder 3 will be almost 30 years old. And with that, a regular fire engine, because the demand is so high, is 5 years right now on a standard fire engine, so.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, now that led me to another question. Sorry. And unfortunately, when we talked a little bit about this, I think maybe in our budget study session, but has there been any progress made as to kind of doing an inventory of where we stand in timing and what a potential plan would be for the next purchasing? I mean, what are our next trucks? And I mean, you mentioned budgeting one every year. Is that something?
So yeah, I have, myself and my predecessors had put together a long-term apparatus replacement schedule. So we have a 40-year replacement schedule of the fire apparatus, knowing the cost of these trucks and the time of production. So we have that in place. We utilize it. That's what I use annually when I'm doing my budget. Unfortunately, it just comes down to whether the funds are available or not. So.
I saw some other hands. Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick?
I
This
just
was
want,
discussion, but yeah, right.
Discussion.
Go ahead.
it wasn't a question, I just wanted to point out to those that are watching us vote on this item, which isn't a small price point.
No.
That because we are doing the prepayment options, it's reducing the purchase price by $234,000. So, you know, I appreciate the forward-looking planning that you do and our attempts to continue to take advantage of those opportunities and make sure we're ordering in the pipeline. Goes without saying, it remains a priority for all of us.
Right, and the nice thing, just to add to this, is we lock in this price today. So even though the truck won't be delivered for 3 years, this is what we're paying. So that's an important.
Well, and as Mayor Baker will often say, anytime we can get some of our money that we've sent to the state to come back to us, that's a good day when we're doing that, so appreciate that.
Now I don't have to say it.
No, you don't get to say that.
Councilmember Gunn, then Chanda.
Did State Senator Weber indicate how long we got to wait for the money? Is this a wait for 3 years?
So the city manager's office, or city management, Kyle Veith, the controller's been in contact. We'll get 50% once we give them the purchase order, so rather quickly. He feels fairly confident we'll get the other 50% when we show that we've paid in full on this. So the hope is that we recoup all the money rather quickly.
Councilmember Chanda.
Yeah, that was going to be my question too, so I got that. I mean, that was going to ask you when it's going to be paid. So,
Right.
you know, we should never say no to money from the
Right.
state, as Mayor Baker will say, it's our tax dollar. But thanks to
Okay, correct.
Senator Weber and, you know, I just wanted to thank Senator Weber and the state Senate and everyone.
So the city manager's office did reach out to Senator Weber's office as well. Unfortunately, he was unable to attend tonight, but I do believe on the 28th, he is looking to attend, and we'd be able to thank him for his efforts then.
And thanks to everyone to reach out to, you know, like doing the planning in advance that saves us money. And it's important that people know how expensive these trucks are and how much time it takes. So
Correct.
those who are watching can get an idea about the challenges we have, right? So, maybe, so.
Any other discussion or questions? No, I just echo what everybody said. I think it's, I appreciate the continued focus on finding the right deal and the best way to do it. And
Absolutely.
the work that city management did with Senator Weber's office to ensure that this qualified and made it through the final budget. And of course to Senator Weber, and he'll be back on the 28th to do a legislative update, and we'll have a chance, like you said, to speak to him then. But this is good news, and, you know, we had the newest ladder truck at the last state of the city, and
Yes.
it cost more than this one did because we didn't get the prepayment.
It was slightly less.
Slightly less? Well, no, I stand
But
corrected.
it was also ordered almost 4 years ago, so.
Right.
But yeah, the difference between that truck and this truck is if we waited and paid it at the end would be almost $800,000
Yeah, that's what I
difference.
meant. Yeah.
So
that's the importance.
so yes, by us being able to order now and do the prepayment, it's a significant savings.
And that's a credit to city management and good fiscal stewardship and managing to find things the right way. So I thank everybody who's involved in that, and it's exciting, good stuff.
Yep.
All right, the vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chanda?
Yes.
Councilmember Gunn?
Yes.
Motion carries. Next up is I-6, a bid waiver, group life insurance, accident and sickness coverage for volunteer firefighters, sole source, also to be introduced by Chief Ullinger.
All right. I also have Jeanette from HR here to assist if need be. But yeah, for many years, the city of Troy has been providing life insurance and workers' compensation benefits to the volunteer firefighters. Recently, we decided to have the city of Troy's benefit consultant, Gallagher Benefit Services, evaluate both the life insurance and the workers' compensation supplement that was being offered. And through their research, they were able to identify a company called the Volunteer Firemen's Insurance Services, or VFIS, who offered coverage for both the group life policy and the workers' comp, or the accident and sickness policy. Myself and city management then reached out to the Volunteer Firefighter Committee and met with them to discuss this. We had representatives both from Gallagher and the Volunteer Firemen's Insurance Services Company do a presentation on what was being offered with both the life insurance and the workers' compensation. And with many questions and discussions between the committee and city management, it was determined that what was evaluated and what was being offered would provide additional benefits and better coverage for the volunteer firefighters and their families if something was to happen. So tonight we're bringing before you the resolution to move forward on retaining and purchasing those policies.
Thank you. Any questions?
Just out of curiosity, I mean, is
Councilor
that
Chanda.
like, yes, sorry. Is that like a it's an enhancement of the benefits, the delta amount, like, it's not a whole lot, $33,000. Is that improving the current policy?
Correct. So so if you're talking, are you talking the life insurance?
Life insurance,
So yeah, the life insurance with that is there's a $50,000 limit until becomes tax implications. So the current policy that's in place is a $50,000 policy. The new one is a $50,000 policy as well. However, they offer additional, I don't want to call it like stacking. So if, let's say an individual unfortunately was killed in the line of duty but had their seatbelt on because they were in a vehicle, they then get an additional, I think it's $15,000. And then if there's this, it's an additional this. And at the end of the day, most of what our volunteer firefighters are doing, if unfortunately they perished in the line of duty, the family members would probably see in excess of $100,000 from this policy. So as this group, the Volunteer Firemen's Insurance Services states, is they were created by a volunteer firefighter, and they look ways to pay the money versus ways not to pay the money to take care of families. So yes, it's a much better benefit options for them.
I know the answer to this, but for the record, the Volunteer Firefighter Incentive Committee is fully supportive of this. I believe you've mentioned that.
Yes.
All of them.
Correct.
Very good. I'm going to move. Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick.
I'll move I-6, bid waiver, group life insurance, accident and sickness coverage for volunteer firefighters, sole source, as printed in the agenda packet.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick, supported by Councilmember Chanda, that we approve I-6, bid waiver, group life insurance, accident and sickness coverage for volunteer firefighters, sole source, as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chanda?
Yes.
Councilmember Gunn?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you.
Chief. That concludes regular business this evening. Next up is the consent agenda. Does anyone have an item on the consent agenda that you'd like to pull for future consideration and discussion? Councilmember Hamilton.
I'd like to move all items on the consent agenda as printed in the agenda packet.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Hamilton, supported by Councilmember Chanda, that we approve all items on the consent agenda as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chanda?
Yes.
Councilmember Gunn?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick?
Yes.
Motion carries. If you're here for an item on the consent agenda this evening, they've all been approved. Next up are memorandums and future council agenda items. We do have one K1 announcement of a public hearing, and there was an updated yellow sheet that corrected some language as part of the memo. K1 announcement on October 28th, 2024, conditional rezoning, CRJPLN 2024-001, proposed Backard Lofts conditional rezoning, north side of Maple, west side of Stevenson, 1441 East Maple Road, PIN number 88-20-26-351-016, section 26, from O office to IB Integrated Industrial and Business District. So that'll be at our next agenda, and it'll be a public hearing. The yellow sheet, just in case you're wondering at home, it incorrectly stated that the Planning Commission recommended denial of the project by 7-1 vote, but it was actually recommending approval by 7-1. So that'll be at the next meeting. Next up is public comment for items not on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. We have 2 people signed up this evening. Same rules, 3 minutes. When the clock gets to 1 minute, the yellow light will come on, and when it turns red, that means your time is up. So Dave Niffen is first.
Good evening. My name is Dave Niffen. I live at 5501 Boros, where I'm serving in my 5th term of the HOA president of the sub. I'm also a candidate for the Michigan State House 56th District, which is most of Troy, all of Clawson, Bloomfield, Birmingham, a little bit of Royal Oak. But my main reason for being here today is I have a concern over the public participation sign-in policy. I had come here 2 weeks ago to speak at the meeting. I've spoken at meetings, public participation from Royal Oak to Ohio, Florida, everywhere, several times, and I've never had to sign in before, and I found it confusing. I came an hour early, and I read your agenda top to bottom. Item F was public comment on agenda items, and it gives a a litany of rules underneath it, a subset, but that was not why I was here. So I went to item L, which didn't give any further instructions, so I assumed signing up would be if I was speaking on the agenda, which I was not. So item L came and went, and no hands were raised. It just moved on. So I found it confusing. But when I got home, I found it to be more problematic, is I was thinking about, like my grandfather, who was a Troy resident until he had died. In his last few months of life, he was blind legally. And I was thinking about it from an ADA Title II perspective, that the city might be in violation of Title II, which requires you guys to make accommodations for people with disabilities. So if I was blind, or if somebody had a ADA-covered illiteracy issue, they would never have been able to read that policy, and thus they would have been skipped over just like I was. I know you guys are aware of the ADA policy because you guys make note of it on the front here. It says persons with disabilities needing accommodations, but it also says to contact the clerk 2 days in advance, which are you asking them to go back in time? I don't understand that. But it also says an attempt will be made for reasonable accommodations. Reality is it's not an attempt to be made for reasonable accommodations. You must make reasonable accommodations. So I call on you guys to address that policy, or at least look into it and see, is this policy necessary? Would it be better served to the public just to raise hands? That way nobody is left out. Because the reality is, if somebody is a Troy resident, comes here, sits down, and they're blind or unable to read this packet, they would not be aware of that policy or how to sign in or when to sign in. And it's discriminatory to them. And I feel like it's an unnecessary policy that most places do not implement. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Melinda Evans.
Hi, good evening. I am here, like the gentleman earlier tonight, talking about the developments in Troy. This one directly affects me. Little background. Over 20 years ago, prior to purchasing my house in the city of Troy, I came to this building and I asked what the property behind me was zoned. At that time, I was told it was zoned single-family residence. I received a letter from the developer in February saying after 20 years of enjoying this beautiful green space, trees that block my house from DeQuinder Road, that they were going to put in adjoining homes. I didn't like the initial proposal they sent. I wrote a letter to them and to the planning department because a road was going to come directly into my backyard. The developer said that they were willing to work with me and they would get back to me. I did not hear anything else from them until a sign went up that the subdivision was going to start being built. I came on Friday to the planning department and found out that there is going to be a 5-unit commercial building adjacent to my property. So we're getting rid of my green space, the trees I've enjoyed for 20 years. I'm getting a 6-foot wall, a garbage dumpster, and a parking lot directly behind my house. It's going to adversely affect me, not only for property value, but the enjoyment of my backyard will now be completely destroyed to look at a garbage dumpster, walls, people pulling their cars in and out on a daily basis right off my patio. They're not huge backyards to begin with. So I hope there's something we can do to mitigate what is going to be done with this layout, especially with my understanding that it was supposed to be single-family homes and that they had proposed homes to begin with. That's the end of my comments. I don't need the full time. Thank you.
That concludes those that have signed up for public comment for items not on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. Now is an opportunity to respond. I'm going to start briefly with Ms. Evans. You emailed us today, I believe.
Yes.
It's like, I haven't gone through your email yet and looked into it, and I'm sure maybe some of us have, but I'm curious. I don't even know off the top of my head where your project is, but I'm curious what that's about in the planning department. But we will, I mean, if it's approved, it's difficult to go back, but I'll look into it and I'll reach out to you and just have a further discussion about it personally. I can say that for now. That's all I can say at the moment. As for Mr. Niffin's concerns, whenever discrimination comes up from the podium, I always turn to the city attorney. I'm not sure, City Attorney Bloom, if you have anything you'd like to say in response.
Certainly we are familiar with the ADA requirements and also the Open Meetings Act. It does comply with both our policy and procedure, and it's been a longstanding practice. It certainly is allowed under the law.
Thank you. Any other response? Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick.
You were commenting that you don't see this at other, different cities do their public comments in different ways. And the policy that was established here is we did have a period of time when, just the short way of saying it, we had a council chamber that was being hijacked by activists. Many of whom didn't even live in the city of Troy. I was not on the city council at that time, but watched a city council that would sometimes endure hours of public comment before they were ever even given a chance to get to the work at hand. At one point, 2 council members came together to, and now that I'm on council, I believe probably worked with our city attorney and the city manager at the time. How can we mitigate the disruption to doing the business of the city? Literally, the ability to govern was being very much compromised. And so that's when our public comment policy was put into place. We wanted to prioritize, as a city, our residents to speak. We wanted to prioritize the business at hand. It's been a long-standing policy. We did set some of it aside during COVID for reasons, and in short order, that same dynamic started to come back into play. And when we were able to, we put this policy that you're seeing back in place. So there was tremendous disruption, and it was all a challenge to manage that. Typically, we do have someone in the hallway ready to assist and help people sign in. I am sorry that there was confusion for you when you came before. But in many ways, and I was a resident back then, and since I've been on council for years, our policy has really served our ability to govern, and it has served our residents themselves very, very well. So I wanted to assure you that it's not a capricious policy or one that was without a great deal of thought in terms of putting processes into place. Other cities may not have run into this and may have never had to endure it or have it creep in. Hopefully it will stay that way for them. But that is what has worked for us and worked very well. So a little background for why it looks so different to you when you come in here.
Thank you. Anything else? All right. There are no council referrals this evening, so we move on to reports. Anybody have any comments on the reports? All right. Next up are council comments. Councilor Gunn.
Got a few, if I don't mind. First, I wanted to thank interim manager and Kurt, because there's been a resident in Troy that has for many years come to us and asking for help behind her house with the nature center, and it looks like whatever you guys talked with her about, some things started happening, so she's happy. So thank you for that. That's one person I have to talk to every week now. The second thing is, I wanted to make an announcement. There had been several people within the Hindu community that's reached out and wanted a Diwali in Troy. And so I got some sponsors, and it looks like we're going to have a Diwali event in Troy. And some more information will be coming, but I want to thank a lot of people behind the scenes that really tried to make this happen. So the third thing is, I'm sure all of you have heard the terrible tragedy in Rochester of the gentleman that was killed by fake DTE employees. And the son actually grew up here in Troy and is an attorney and very involved in Woodside Bible and Kensington. I believe the funeral, I can't remember it wasn't today, I think it's tomorrow. But everybody be careful, keep your eyes and ears open when this type of stuff happens. Just in my neighborhood today, I don't know what was going on, but we must have had 8, 9 police cars in our neighborhood, and I don't know exactly what was happening, but it just reminds us, when people come to the door, it isn't always with good intentions, so keep your eyes and ears open and don't, be careful.
Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you. Additional council comments? Councilmember Brooks?
Thank you, Mayor. So first of all, it's a busy time of year, so I just wanted to point out, I'm assuming somebody's going to talk about Frightful 5K, one of you guys, maybe?
I'll cover that.
Okay. So I'm going to talk about the Nature Center Uncorked, which is the biggest fundraiser for the Nature Center of the year. It's a great event. Tickets are on sale right now. It will take place November 8th at the Troy Community Center. You can get VIP tickets or general admission, and ticket prices will go up after November 1st. So get your tickets now. You can get them online, and it's a wonderful way to support our Nature Center. So I encourage everyone to attend. And the other thing I just wanted to point out is my daughter is here. She is here for extra credit for AP government class. So shout out to all the students that are here and Mr. Rawenka's class, and in general, just to our Troy teachers. Last week was parent-teacher conferences, so I met with a lot of teachers, and our teachers are doing a lot of great things, and I think that's why, our Troy School District is one of the top in the state. So thank you for all the teachers. They're doing a great job.
Thank you. Any additional council comments on this side? I've got to do Frightful 5K, so I'll go there.
Yeah.
Frightful 5K is Sunday, October 27th, and it's the best 5K in the state, I think, for sure, right? And it is a lot of fun, actually, and come in costume, don't come in costume, but whatever you want to do, but you get to run around our Civic Center campus and onto Big Beaver, which is shut down for a portion of it, which I think is pretty unique. And entry fees did actually just go up today, so sorry, but it's for a good community event, and honestly, there's been hundreds of people that have gone over the years, and people just seem to have a good time, and it's a good way to see our community from a different perspective on foot. And you don't have to run; you can walk. There's a lot of walkers too, but I know that it's a early morning for our recreation and Parks and Facilities team, and City Stand Police and Fire. Everybody who's there does a lot of work, so I appreciate in advance all of them who will be there on a Sunday morning, always in the cold, always in the dark, getting ready for the community to come out and have some fun. But 27th of this month, Frightful 5K, register online on the city's website. It's easy to find, so I'll be there. Any other comments? All right. There's nobody signed up for public comment for items on or not on the agenda from members of the public outside of Troy. We do not have a closed session this evening, so with that, we are adjourned.